It may not be everybody that will identify with this, but if you can, you need to put yourself in my seat. It's important that I acknowledge that I have benefited from the oppression of other people. Here's what I mean. I've had hard moments in my life, and I'm sure you have too. I've woken up with challenges and difficulties that I faced. I had to overcome a learning disability. There's lots of things that have been barriers to me, but I've never woken up a day in Canada and the color of my skin has been a barrier for me to be able to move forward in this life. And I need to acknowledge that I have benefited from the oppression of others. It's like words like white privilege can be such a flashpoint for some people, but that's not a buzzword. It's an acknowledgement that I have benefited by systems that have systematically oppressed others. And I'll be honest with you, much of it unconsciously. I never went out to do that. I never intended to do that. It wasn't in my heart or my will, but it was something that I was a part of. And it's important to acknowledge that if we're going to be about righteousness and justice. Now, we're in a moment in time, a shift in nature, and I know you can see it. And there can be a part of us to say, well, at least we're not like the United States. And listen, if you're viewing from the United States, we love you. Their history is different than ours. But you know I'm a student of history. I often pull it out from Scripture, but I love Canadian history. I'm proud to be a Canadian. It's not a perfect nation, but it's a good nation. I hope most of you would agree. But historically, friends, we have oppressed First Nations people. Read your history of what has happened to people of color in Africville and Preston and some of the first Afro-Canadian communities in Canada and the East Coast. Not right. To new immigrants and to women. So when I say things, and I did 2 years ago in a sermon, I spent a lot of time on this. When I say Black Lives Matter, there can be something in us, if you're not from that community, you might say, well, doesn't every life matter? Well, of course every life matters, friends. But isn't it interesting in the Bible that God takes moments and he expresses deep love and devotion to the widow, the orphan, and the new immigrant? Why does he do that? Does he not love, and women are elevated in Scripture and he expresses great love. Does he not love men? Of course he does. Doesn't he love families? Of course he does. But I liken it to this. If you were in my neighborhood and your house was burning down, and the fire department came into my neighborhood and said, listen, every house matters. And so they begin to water down all the houses. I would be waving to them and say, well, okay, every house matters, but this house matters more because it's burning to the ground. When we say Black Lives Matter, we're acknowledging. Friends, something has been burning to the ground and it's not okay. Acknowledgement is one of the key pathways that we can be living a personal righteousness and justice, and we can bring it to our city.